Welcome to Father on Purpose. For the next 6 or 7 weeks, we're going to release a series based on the book of Proverbs, chapter 12. I was reading it recently, and it just felt like every verse or two, something jumped off the page at me that was super applicable for me as a dad. And some of this stuff's pretty convicting. So welcome into the convicting and applicable journey with me through Proverbs chapter 12. Let's start right in verse 1. Verse 1 says, "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid." One of the reasons I love this verse is because it's one of the very few spots in the Bible where you can find the word stupid. I love defining that word. The King James says that the person who hates reproof is brutish. I like that. Not Brutus and not British, okay? Brutish. What is it about someone giving us feedback or reproof that makes us want to bristle and not listen to that reproof? And I know some of you are kind of passing this through the filter of your children. And you're going, oh yeah, man, that kid of mine, boy, he really does need to listen because he doesn't accept feedback very well. Maybe, just maybe, this is kind of crazy, but maybe he learned that from you. Because certainly my kids have learned some of that from me. I remember a time when we were out on our back deck at our house, and my wife and I were having what became a fairly heated conversation with our older teenage son. And there was this specific issue, I'm trying to avoid the details, this specific issue that we were talking about. And as the conversation got more and more animated, especially between my wife and my son, I just called like a timeout. And I just said, timeout. And I literally said, April, can you just not say anything? Jeremy, can you just not say anything for a minute? I said, Jeremy, do you think this conversation is about us getting you to do things a certain way and to change your behavior? He goes, well, yeah, obviously, that's what you guys are talking about. And I said, okay. I don't want to have that conversation anymore. Here's the conversation I want to have. Can you hear and receive feedback? Like, let's just for a moment take a big time out. Forget the issue on the table. Forget it. Instead, let's just talk about, do you have the capacity to listen to your mom or to listen to me and give you feedback and have you go, I said, we are not crazy, bumbling fools. Therefore, for you to just reject our feedback out of hand and not listen to us, that's a bigger problem. And what I told him was, the issue we're walking through right now will eventually go away. In a year or two, this will be smoothed over. The issue of the day will not be the issue of forever. I'm not worried about the issue. I am, however, concerned about your current inability to hear and receive feedback. That, to me, I think, has longer term implications than just, are we fixing today's problem? So the reason I tell you that whole story, I know it's kind of a long story, is because sometimes, Dad, we get focused on our kids, learning to take out the garbage or getting their grades or not dating that boy or whatever the issues are of the day. And one of the things that we lose sight of over time is, can they hear and receive feedback at all? And here's the challenge for us as dads. Often, they can or cannot based on the example that they see us set, right? So for example, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. Do you love discipline? Do you love it when your boss pulls you aside and says, hey man, that meeting did not go great? Or do you love it when your wife pulls you aside and goes, golly, man, you were a jerk today with the kids. Do you love that? Do you love it? Wow. If you don't, then who are you, who am I to sit on the deck and tell my son, man, you got to be able to receive feedback if I can't receive feedback. And believe me, when you run a ministry like the one that we run, you get a lot of feedback. And so you got to fall in love with it. You got to fall in love with the feedback. And so In Proverbs 1, you can go back and see it. You neglected my advice. You didn't want my rebuke. In Proverbs 10, you see it. One who is on the path of life follows instruction, but one who ignores a rebuke goes astray. Proverbs 12, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Dad, do you want to be a wise man or do you want to be a fool? If you want to be a wise man, you got to love rebuke. I know that sounds awkward or it may sound counterintuitive, but we've got to fall in love with rebuke if we're going to be wise, and we've got to teach our children how to do the same thing, which leads me right to this week's mission. This week's mission is we might have to have a conversation with our children or a child in our home that goes like this. You may think we're talking about this issue, but I'm not talking about this issue. I'm talking about your capacity to hear and receive feedback, like I did with my son. So my challenge for you this week is your mission is, can you step outside of the issue du jour, whatever that is, school, work, dating, drugs, sex, whatever the topics are in your home these days. Can you step outside of those and say, hey, we just need to get to where I can give you feedback and you can receive it. Now, Dad, some of the burden is on us and how we deliver it, right? If I throw a fastball at you and go, man, you got to catch that. Well, all right, but you might have to be a great catcher to catch it. But if I lob it up to you gently, it's much easier to catch. So sometimes the reason that our reproof or our feedback is not received well is because of the way that we offer it, which is in fact what our children will tell us when we engage in this conversation. If they go, well, okay, Dad, but you can't yell at me. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're not going to receive that well. So this week, find your way into one of your kids' hearts and ask them if they have the capacity to hear and receive feedback. And then as you talk with them, be open to the same thing coming at you from them. I pray that you'll do this because you're not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose.